you to today's presenter, Steve Roach. Steve joined the ANA in 1991 and was editor-in-chief of Coin World. He's a numismatist and appraiser with a focus on fine art, rare coins, and metals. Steve is a certified member of the International Society of Appraisers, where he teaches appraisal ethics and methodology. He received the ANA's YN of the Year in 97, its Medal of Merit in 2024, and writes the ANA's Collecting Friends blog with Dennis Tucker. Steve will be presenting some trends affecting coin collecting in 2025. Dennis is on next month for a presentation, so you can look out for that. And it's all yours, Steve.
Awesome. Thank you, Paula. So I'm going to do my share screen now. Paula, is it shared?
It is shared perfectly.
Terrific. So I told Paula, if anyone has questions, feel free to use the question and answer. So let me get that up on my screen. So I have the questions right now. Feel free to make questions, comments. I'll do my best to incorporate them into this. If it gets to be a little bit just too much, then I might have Paula come in and run a little bit of interference. But hopefully we can all kind of have this to be a little bit interactive, because I've been doing this at ANA conference or ANA World's Fair of Monies for probably around 10 years. And one of the best things is that it's one of the few times that I just get to sit in a room and chat coins with a lot of people. So hopefully some of you have been to one of those. They're very lively. I generally don't have them taped just because I'm giving you my opinion on things. And of course, these things are representative of my opinions. They're not representative of employers. It's especially fun to talk at Coin Week or National Coin Week, because one of my first things with the ANA was 1993 National Coin Week. I read in the Numismatist that there was some point-based system for kids to be able to attend the ANA World's Fair, or excuse me, ANA Summer Seminar. And I did all my little activities with the Michigan State Numismatic Society, submitted an application, and got a scholarship for ANA Summer Seminar. So National Coin Week is always a little bit special for me. Let's talk about some of the trends that are affecting coin collecting in 2025. And when I was prepping for this, I looked at the first time I gave this, which I think would have been in 2014, so more than a decade ago. And goodness, a lot has changed. A lot has changed in the past 5 years. And we can give a lot of the credit for changes in the hobby, or whatever we want to call it, to COVID. Now, something I did when I was prepping for this is I asked several generative AI programs. So I asked Google AI and a few other programs to kind of come up with some images. And so I said, what is an image of COVID and gold in 2025? And this popped up. Won't say that it is a super aesthetically pleasing image, but it gets the point across. These are two of the main drivers in our hobby over the past 5 years or so. And it's kind of crazy to think that 5 years ago, the World Health Organization was declaring COVID-19 a public health emergency, and people were staying in their houses. A lot of people still had their jobs. They were working remotely. They were at their computer. They were stuck at home, and they were revisiting some of the hobbies that they enjoyed growing up. A lot of them were going through and kind of looking at their Whitman coin albums and thinking, oh, maybe I'll start looking at coins that I can get from the bank if I can physically get my hands on coins. Maybe I'm just looking a little bit more on eBay. Maybe I'm subscribing to a coin magazine. Maybe I'm on Facebook and I'm noticing that there's more Facebook groups. As people were staying at home, they were getting much more involved in their collecting. And that collecting goes in a lot of different areas. Stamp collecting saw a boost. Watch collecting saw a huge boost. Small luxury items saw a big boost. And coins saw a boost. Now, 5 years later, COVID is all but a memory, but gold is now at the forefront of conversation, as there's been a lot of changes in financial policies that have made people want security. Gold is now at around $3,300 an ounce. And For those of us who remember not all so long ago when gold was at the $400 to $600 level, that is astronomical. And it changes a lot for the hobby. It is very hard for collectors of normal means to buy collectible gold and silver coins right now, as gold is at the $3,300 an ounce level and silver's hovering at $33 an ounce. A basic Morgan dollar costs $35. A silver eagle costs $36, $37. It makes it so that you're almost dollar cost averaging to be able to put together date sets. And for a lot of people, that makes coin collecting less accessible. It's also bringing people into the hobby as they're looking at alternative investments. And where this is coming into play is especially at the US Mint. Before we get there, I did play with AI a little bit and said, show me who the typical coin collector is. So I think the first one said coin collector, and I got the one on the left. It is a distinguished white gentleman looking at a tray of what appears to be fabulous world and ancient coins in a study that probably looks familiar to a lot of people. On the right, I ask the same AI program, please give me a typical coin collector. And this one looks a little bit more kind of like we would expect. There are a lot of coins, he's sorting through them, but the same type of individual. And that's consistent with the demographics of our hobby. The US Mint is trying to broaden those, which has been interesting because the US Mint works within a pretty tight framework. Most of its issues are legislative mandates. So Congress passes a law, there are coins struck for that law. The US commemorative program is a perfect example. Anyone who was collecting in the 90s, well, if you were collecting in the 70s, there were no modern commemoratives. The modern commemorative program is, I think it would be a millennial. It started in 1982 with the George Washington half dollars, kind of got big in the 90s and big in terms of just a volume of issues. And then the 1996 Commemorative Reform Act limited the number of commemorative programs to just 2 per year. These programs are determined by Congress. So a lot of the programs that coin collectors would say, this is what we really want, they don't necessarily get. They get what Congress is passing. And looking at the US Mint, I pulled this up just this morning. It's even surprising to me as someone who follows coins that a new modern commemorative silver dollar is almost $100. A commemorative half dollar is $61. And if you wanted to get a gold quarter ounce or so coin of the new program, you're looking at going more than $1,000. The result is that the mintages are going down. But something that we have to think about with these low mintages is that are collectors in the future going to be interested? And Tracy said, but you can't sell the coins for that much. Yeah, a lot of these coins are sort of like cars in that the highest value is when you purchase it at the dealership, and then they decline in value. I mean, there's not a depreciation on coins like there is for a car. Coins don't wear down if they're held in their protective capsules, but buying a coin is not a guarantee of future profits, of course. The US Mint is trying a lot of things to make these programs more attractive. Last year saw the Harriet Tubman birth bicentennial dollars, half dollars, and $5 gold coins, and those have had pretty small mintages, even small mintages relative to the maximum authorized mintage. The mint director signed 250 certificates of authenticity that were randomly inserted into 3 coin sets. Those made a little bit of an impact in the market, but the US Mint is trying to make its products more appealing by making the same products differentiated from one another. This is the ultimate example of that. Last year, the US Mint did a flowing hair dollar, and they did a gold dollar. They did the first 230 of them, marking the 230th anniversary of the denomination with a little privy mark. What's a privy mark? It's something that's used in European coins, especially, and it is a distinguishing mark on the coin. Different than a mint mark, but it distinguishes a coin as being part of a special program, for example. It's for the 230 first coin struck. And rather than direct marketing, what the mint would typically do with these, whereas the mint is selling them to the consumer, here the mint worked with Stack's Bowers galleries. They did a special auction, and the first of the Privy Mark 2024 dollars sold for $440,000 with the dies. That is a huge price for an issue that otherwise was selling from the mint for $3,800 or so. It's part of a tradition of the last couple decades of the US Mint going back to its favorite coin designs. We first saw this in broad use in 1986 with the American Eagle Gold and Silver Bullion Program, where they revived the Walking Liberty half dollar and the St. Gaudens double eagle, and we've seen it over the past few years in a lot of different programs. This was a successful program for the US Mint. Presumably, they made a lot of profit on these coins that they shared with Stack's Bowers Gallery as the seller. And these coins have enjoyed a nice secondary market. But, if they were selling 230 of them, what's the difference between the number one and the number two? Not really any of them. They have the separate privy marks, but the quality is the same. The two cheapest of the group of the 230, one sold for 25,000, that was number 19, and number 97 also sold for 25,000. So the difference between a regular one, which was selling for 3,800, the cheapest of the privy marked, which sold for 25,000, and the most expensive of the privy mark that came with the original canceled dies at 440,000 is Stark. And these coins are of essentially the same quality. US modern minting practices for these types of special issues pretty much ensures that the first coin is as exceptional as the final coin from a set of dies. Another thing we're going to see the Mint doing pretty soon is their DC Comics partnership. This is going to be exciting because it's going to bring in a lot of people who would not normally collect coins, and it is creating some silver issues that have the potential to be relatively accessible to people who also collect comic books. It's a nice brand partnership that seems to align with the way that people collect coins and the way that people collect comic books, because comic books are certified, they're collected in sets. There's a lot of parallels between the two markets, and the comic book market is one of those markets that went big during COVID. The three designs are going to be struck each year with gold and silver, matching clad metal sets available in later of the year. The US Mint is talking about the kind of influence of comic book art on American culture and say that these superheroes will reflect American culture and American values. These, because they're bullion products, live outside of the US commemorative program, so they don't have to be specifically legislated by Congress. It's going to be pretty exciting to see how the market responds to these. So someone asked, do you think that the discontinuance of the cent will affect the hobby this year and in the future? Now's a great time to talk about that because we're talking about the US Mint. If I was having a group of people, I would say, how many people like getting cents or pennies in their change? And everyone will kind of reluctantly raise their hand. People aren't that jazzed to have pennies. The removal of the penny will make it into something nostalgic. It will probably give a nice boost for the Lincoln cent in the way that the 2009 centennial, where it was the 100th year anniversary of the Lincoln cent with the special reverses, put some more interest on the classic issues. There's a lot of interest in the modern issues because of the close AM reverse varieties, and there's still a lot of pocket change looking for coins. The elimination of the cent is going to, in my opinion, probably help the cent because people like discontinued denominations and people have a nostalgic feel for it. And from the lowly cent to the top of the market is expanding. I think me as a coin collector growing up in the 90s, if you would have asked me, what's an expensive coin? I would have said an 1894 S dime, an 1804 draped bust silver dollar, and a 1913 nickel. Maybe I would have said a 27D um, $20 double eagle, but the top of the market was a handful of very well known rarities. And it's expanded since then. People are looking for coins that are unique or very much close to that unique level. In the upper left hand corner here, we've got an 1881 O New Orleans Mint branch mint proof Morgan dollar. It's graded proof 64 by PCGS, and it's got one of those little CAC green beans, these certified acceptance corp green stickers that indicate quality within the grade. There are no mint records that show that the New Orleans Mint struck 1881 proof dollars, but looking at the coin, it looks special. Experts say that it is struck on a specially prepared planchet, potentially from specially prepared dies. It has much stronger details from a bold strike. It obviously was struck with special care, but the coin itself has to speak because we don't have contemporary documentation for it. There are a lot of collectors of Morgan dollars. It's still probably the most popular US coin. And there's many people putting together registry sets, these sets that are organized by grading services so that people can have competition. It's not just enough to buy the coin at auction, you have to then register it as part of your set and then share it with other collectors. For many people, it is a fun diversion. For some people, it is deeply competitive. This 1881 O dollar sold for $660,000. Probably not a coin that virtually anyone would initially think would be passing the $500,000 mark. When it comes to rarities, gold coins remain kind of in a status of their own when compared to silver coins. The 1927D St. Gaudens Double Eagle on the upper right is one of those melt rarities from the 1920s. Had a decent mintage, but most of them made it to the melting pot, so not many of them are around today. This one was offered in 2020, sold for 2.1 million. Then, when it was reoffered in 2025 at the fund show, it sold for 3.8 million. It nearly doubled in value in the past 5 years. And that's consistent with a lot of these incredibly rare gold coins, because especially international buyers feel more comfortable buying gold rarities than silver or bronze ones, from what dealers have told me. Our lovely 1894 S dime, proof, 24 were presumably struck, maybe 10 survive today. This one's the finest known, graded proof 66. It's held its value over the past decade, right around the $2 million mark. One of the quirkier coins that have come through is the only privately held New England 3 pence. Undated coin, not much to look at, but if you're a specialist in early American numismatics, it is the only example around, sold for just over $2.5 million in 2024. And it shows this expansion of this very top level of the market to coins that I don't think people would have predicted would have been there a generation ago. Like we talked about the cent going away, something else that we might see in the next year is as the US Mint is reviving some of its popular designs. It's looking to do that for the 250th anniversary of the country in 2026. This surge of history, combined now with the removal of the cent, might bring a lot of nostalgia to people looking at coins and might bring a little bit of a surge in the market. Tracy says, I love my Lincoln cent. There are so many cents in jars that it'll take years before it makes an impact. And then Robert asks, on the US Mint rising precious metal prices, do you think the US Mint would ever launch a 1 ounce copper series? Sure. I think that they're more likely to potentially work with copper nickel because there's more options for things like colorization with copper nickel, and copper nickels look like silver. I think the average person is still a little bit tentative to spend significant amounts on a bronze coin. I think if given the choice, and I think about what private mints are producing. Private mints are producing copper rounds as a novelty, but when you're selling things on TV, you want it to look gold, you want it to look silver. So I would see them moving more into copper nickel. And buddy Dennis Tucker, shout out to Dennis, attend his Numis talks next month. Do you think the 2026, and he's making me say the word, the 250th anniversary of the US has the most awful, it is the semi quincentennial. Try saying that 5 times quick. Will it be on the radar of the average American? I think potentially in East Coast cities. I live in Baltimore. I imagine it being big in Baltimore, New York, Boston, cities that have enough heritage spaces so that there can be marketing to them. Will it be on the radar of the average American, potentially on the central US or the West Coast? Maybe not. I recently watched ANA's numismatist editor Caleb lead a discussion. I think it was just sent out today by the ANA of the candidates for the Board of Governors. And something they mentioned is that the nature of coin shows is changing. You know, it is now pretty unusual for an auction to be held at a coin show. And Great Collections, the online auctioneer, has been showing this to great advantage. Now, typically, coins are now previewed at the show. So I think ANA has two or several official ANA auction partners. And at the ANA World's Fair of Money, both Heritage and Stax Bowers galleries will have their showings at the show, and then the auctions back home at their home offices. Typically, Great Collections will also make coins available for showing, but their auctions aren't necessarily tethered to a show. And that's changed a lot of people's perceptions of auctions. It's changed the auction calendar. We still have our big auctions that are at the Florida United Numismatist Show, the ANA Summer Show, the Central State Show, but there's more auctions dotting the calendar that do not have a show attached to them. And dealers tend to like this because if they're at a show, they want to be doing business, not necessarily sitting and looking at coins. They don't necessarily want to be spending their evenings bidding on coins. They'd rather be doing fun things with their dealer friends or meeting clients. So this has been largely a win-win for collectors and for auction houses. But as we'll talk about in a little bit, it has removed some of the action from the actual show. This is a 1944S cent supposed to be struck on a copper planchet, instead struck on a steel planchet. Now, people typically have always said, oh, these are tougher cells than the 1943 copper cents, but this one, exceptional quality, sold for just under $500,000 on January 5th in an online auction, not attached to a show. As we're talking about coin shows, we're thinking about a new generation of buyers. And so we saw at the beginning with my AI experiment where I said, give me a coin collector. And it showed a distinguished white gentleman in a darkened study. Now I said, show me happy young coin collectors. And then I used variations of that. And I got these two groups of happy young coin collectors. And this is who everyone is trying to at least get interested in coins. Coin shows are a great way to do that. They're one of people's entry points to the hobby, especially the ANA World's Fair of Money. It's where you have a ton of free educational events, you have robust exhibits, you have a lot. Now, oh, Elliot says, do you think there's a need for the show circuit to shrink as there may be less revenue from auction partnerships in the future. We're seeing already some contraction within the commercial show markets. Long Beach is on hiatus. Baltimore show is still 3 times a year. ANA still has its robust summer show and the midwinter show. And Central states and Florida are still going strong. A lot of state organizations are having some problems. And part of that is due to lack of revenue coming in from auctions, and also because dealers are reluctant to cover the cost of the show in terms of higher tables. Yeah, Robert says the next 2 Long Beach shows are canceled. I wouldn't be surprised to see Baltimore revisiting 3 per year. And Bill comments on the US Mint showing a lack of creativity. The US Mint is, I think, doing what it can. It's also hampered by the restrictions placed on it by Congress. Some of the other consolidations that are happening within the hobby are at the kind of broad top level of it. Our hobby has gotten incredibly centralized. A-Mark Precious Metals announced a couple months ago that it was acquiring Stack's Bowers Gallery for $92 million to increase its reach into strategically adjacent luxury markets that are expected to offer higher margins and expanded customer bases. This is coming directly from their press release. And it showed some rare numbers that we don't necessarily see from private firms. Stack's Bowers saw total revenue of $536 million as of the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2024. 24 million of this came from the auction services unit, and another 512 came from dealers, resulting in a gross profit of $46 million. So profitable, but a lot of the profit is coming from the bullion end of things. Heritage is a privately held company as well. And something we've been seeing within other markets, including Christie's, Sotheby's, and some of the regional auction houses like Bonham's, Heinemann Freeman, some of those, is that they're using goods that normally wouldn't have been on their radar. Sports memorabilia, comics and comic memorabilia, which is now broadly called pop culture, and luxury goods, and using these as entry-level points to get people comfortable with the auction process. Going back to our great collections example of the 44S steel cent, there were 18 bidders placing 71 bids. That's pretty broad bidding, and it had nearly 10,000 page views. Now, why is this picture of a nice French Impressionist painting up on the screen? So my other field is that I'm an art appraiser, and this is a painting by the British-born French Impressionist Alfred Sisley. He is in every major museum in the world. He is viewed as someone who exhibited in all the important Impressionist exhibits alongside Claude Monet, Pissarro, Renoir, and is in the same history books as all of them. But typically, people want something that is representative of their generation. If people want 1 or 2 Impressionist paintings, they want a Monet. And so the market for this type of traditional Impressionist over the sofa, over the fireplace painting has declined over the past decade. This is a pretty typical Impressionist picture by a well-known kind of historically important Impressionist painter. A decade ago, in 2012, it sells for just under $1 million, and it recently sold for around $650,000. Now, we think of this as blue chip art, kind of the sort of art that is always in demand and never goes down. But traditional tastes are changing, and Clark says, do I think numismatists will go back to the heat of the 1960s? I think that it's a different time, and I think for anything to get the broad percentage interest that coins got in the 1960s, the competition for people's spare time and money is so much greater than it was in the 1960s, where today, to even get 1% of the country involved in numismatics would be incredible. In the 1960s, I've seen estimates that 1 in 5 people were coin collectors. I don't think you're going to see that again today. And someone asks, will the US coin market increasingly rely upon foreign buyers for more expensive coins or average cost coins? From what people have told me, the main global interest in coins is with gold coins at the high end of the market. Now, something that people are tuning into are the example of St. Gaudens $20 double eagles. It used to be that there was a nice premium for Mint State 64 coins. Now those coins sell for virtually the same as their melt value. As a result, that's put pressure on Mint State 65 and Mint State 66 coins, and there's been more differentiation in quality for those coins. So PCGS coins, who are PCGS examples of Saints in MS65 and MS66, typically sell for more than comparably graded NGC coins because of a market perception. CAC stickers are worth significantly more on those types of coins because there are so many out there that people can afford to be choosy. But when you're looking at any St. Gaudens double eagle selling for $3,200 just for melt value, you're seeing very strange things happen with all of these coins that at one time were slightly better dates, slightly better date grade combinations, and now they are just kind of average bullion coins. So future buyers matter because we want to anticipate the taste of the market, like a few of our commenters have said, and we also don't want to have that kind of fuddy-duddy expensive painting over the fireplace. We're more likely to liquidate that and spend it on something that we want. And Robert, I am not a paper money guy, so I'm talking about coins. There are wonderful paper money people. I've just never caught that bug. Grading service differentiation, we talked about that a little bit within the difference between 65 and 66 St. Gaudens $20 double eagles, between grading services. But something we're seeing a lot of are grading services trying to differentiate their own products by making signature labels. This one is signed by ANA legend Ken Brissett, graded Mint State 10. Now you might say, whoa, I've heard of Mint State 69 and Mint State 70, but what's Mint State 10? It is a 10-point grading scale that is used by NGCX to try to approximate the scale used for comics and sports cards, for example. I saw someone on a message board say, have you ever seen these in the wild? They don't seem to come around that much, but it's a way to make a seemingly similar coin potentially sell for a little bit more. Now you might say 2023 struck at the West Point Mint, but there's no mint mark on it. These coins are shipped directly from the mint to the grading services, and so they can use the point of shipment to determine which mint struck it. Is this coin physically any different from virtually any other 2023 half-ounce gold eagle? Not really. But because it's in this holder, that context makes it different and in demand for some people. Something else we're seeing, and it's a little bit more of the gamification of the hobby as we see with the ranking of registry sets, is this idea of a vault box. I'll admit, until I saw it in an ad and looked it up, I had not really known about this concept. A vault box has one coin in it. It's a coin that is picked to be nice. Some of them are going to be normal coins. And then within the vault box release is one exceptional coin. This one is an octagonal 1915S Pan Pac commemorative. You're paying $9.99 for this box for the chance of getting a 1915S coin with an immediate buy it now price of $100,000. Collecting, speculation, it's a gray area, but could bring more people to the hobby. Some of the other notes I had are things like structural changes in the hobby, and that Stax Bowers is offering something called the SBG Vault. It's a secure storage facility in Dallas, Texas. Coins are held in a climate-controlled environment with potential for This is from the press release. With potential financially strategic advantages on coins delivered to the vault. So you don't even have to take possession of your coins. You can have them delivered to the vault. This is taking a page from the art market, where often art is delivered to secured storage facilities or free ports in tax neutral zones so that you don't have to necessarily do all of the paperwork and declarations that you would get if it was going to your home. Also, as we talked about the growth of the hobby, there's a lot of great programs that are happening right now beyond the ANA Summer Seminar. Stax Bowers has its professional numismatic program, Whittier Coin U. There's the PNG Professional Numismatic Guilds Next Gen. There's lots of opportunities that are trying to go beyond the middle school and high school that the ANA is largely focused on, and trying to get people to see that numismatics can be a viable career path, whether or not somebody chooses to go to college. There's also information changes. A few weeks ago, I was at the Baltimore show, picked up the new Red Book. I have a blur on, but you can see it. Bigger than the other one. A lot has changed, a lot is different. One of the main differences, and this is just one example, is in the classic commemorative half dollars. Well, you can't see it, but the classic commemorative half dollars have been consolidated onto just a few pages with some of the narrative taken away. We have to think, will that keep people from really getting attached to this series? What potential could that have in the market within 5-10 years from now? There is a trend towards numbering systems that is right in here. So next to the mintage and the values, there is a GSID. Again, an attempt for some standardization within data within our field. We've seen a lot of consolidation with data in our field. We saw the acquisition of Whitman Publishing and the Red Book by Graysheet. And it makes me think of Bob Kelly, who founded the Kelly Blue Book for used cars. And he said, used car pricing is both an art and a science. GSID is the numbering system that is going to be used across Whitman products. So Kelly says used car pricing is both an art and a science. There's a lot of information out there. There's also been a significant decline in traditional numismatic publications. I can name on one hand the people who are able to make a full-time living in numismatic information. The idea of numismatic journalism is largely not present in our hobby. There's a lot of changes that are happening that need to be sorted out, because with so much information that's available for free, people have issues figuring out, what do I pay for? What do I get for free? And as we've seen with this creation of AI generated content, sometimes we get good things for free. Sometimes we get things that aren't worth our time. I'll be really curious to see what happens as collectors kind of use these new resources and connect with each other, and to see if there really is some improvement in pricing within the hobby. Like all unique objects, there's not a one size fits all to coin pricing. This is a 1948 Franklin half dollar graded mint state 68 full bell lines, meaning that it has fully split bands across those horizontal bands on the reverse. It has incredibly vibrant and interesting toning. Stax Bowers called it spectacular, making it a prize for the registry set. It's the finest graded Franklin half dollar. Is it toning? Is it tarnish? Sold for $84,000. And with Facebook, with all of the groups that are popping up, with Instagram, with even Reddit message boards, people are finding new ways to communicate and have this discussion on if it's toning, if it's tarnish, making things interesting. And I think that dynamism, those changes, are going to make sure that our hobby stays relevant. And all of these factors come together. Maybe if I give this talk in 5 years, we'll have a totally different landscape. Well, we got some questions here. Do you see any interest in obsolete denominations like half cent, 2 cent, 3 cent nickel? Sure. People are looking to either have the best set of these or they're looking for an example for type. It's one of these markets where you can have one or two new buyers pop in the market and it can reshape it. It's a thin market, but there's always a lot of interest for the type collectors. And as long as there's registry sets that are still popular, there will be people competing for the best. Historic coins, are they becoming less or more popular? Oh, I think they're becoming more popular. When you have to pay $40 for a silver eagle, looking at something like a Civil War token or a Roman coin becomes a much more viable value proposition. And it's exciting. There's a lot of popular books that are out now on Roman history. I think Dennis and I wrote a little like collecting friends on that meme that went around a while ago that said, "How often do you think of the Roman Empire?" And the typical guy said, "Daily." When people find out that they can buy coins related to the Civil War, when they can buy things related to the Roman Empire, that is compelling. So I think there'll always be a market. Now, we have to put ancient coins in the framework of import restrictions and potentially other types of restrictions that may limit the marketability of them. Robert says, Anonymous says, will interest in platinum and palladium coins increase, remain stable, or decline as per ounce results remain stable? I don't know about that. I've never been excited about platinum or palladium just because the coins look like silver and silver is significantly cheaper. I think many people have sort of felt that. Robert says, do you think spectacularly toned coins receive a higher grade than they would if they weren't toned? That's one of the beauties of market grading. Market grading takes Dr. Sheldon's 1 to 70 scale and then says, you are allowed to reward a coin for having what the market considers to be positive eye appeal. So does it help this coin? Potentially, yes. But is this the sort of coin that you would want to buy? That's your decision. Steve says, excellent. Thank you. Anonymous says, what's a better buy, quality or rarity? The worst answer of all, it depends. Will tariffs affect the hobby? Potentially. I think everyone's waiting to see how this shakes out. Right now, there's a discussion on the impact of bullion, whether collector coins are exempted, whether collector coins are going to be viewed like art. People are waiting to see what this is going to happen. I did see something interesting in that CNG, Classical Numismatic Group. They primarily sell ancient and world coins, made clear that for their May auction, all of the material was already in the country by the time any tariffs may have gone into effect. So auction houses are getting ahead of the curve. I've seen comments from both Stack's Bowers and Heritage saying that they believe that the impact of tariffs will be minimal on the market. Someone says, in social media, how can one keep tab on what coins are hot and where the auctions happen? Any reliable channel or account that you can suggest? I look at where volume is happening. Stack's Bowers, Heritage, great collections. Look at where most of the coins are selling. See what's moving. I think that a lot of people enjoy the PCGS coin collecting message board. I'll give a shout out to a local coin club, any type of local coin show. If you want to get a sense of the market for normal coins, the weekly or monthly local coin show in whatever community you live in, talk to those dealers. They know what's selling and what's not. I have never met anyone more astute in the market than a lot of these local coin dealers who have a shop and they know what's selling and what's not. Thanks, Floyd, for the shout out. What else? Anyone have any more things they want to talk about? With that, I was told to keep it at 45 minutes. I am at 45 minutes exactly. There's my cell phone. There's my email. If I can ever be of service to y'all, let me know. And I'll be giving a interactive version of this presentation at the ANA World's Fair of Money in Oklahoma City. Looks like I'll be doing that on Thursday morning. So if you're there, come on by, say hello, and we can have this discussion in person.
Like you got another couple questions popped in.
Cool. Robert says, what's not app? Don't know about that one. Robert says, seems like the big loser of these trends are the low to mid-grade semi-key dates. They are destined to slide in value. Think about the Sicily that we saw. There is a market for the top of the market. You know, the middling stuff is the easiest to sell because it's the easiest to replace. I think that the semi-key dates, especially in bullion dependent coins, have seen a lot of their premiums evaporate. I remember when I was doing the pricing at Coin World, and this would have been 10, 15 years ago, when silver markets were shifting and seeing premiums evaporate from many of the Morgan silver dollars that were at one point better dates, but not necessarily rare by any means, seeing those evaporate and they haven't come back. Clark asks, do I think Morgan dollars like in 1909 SVDB cents are overrated? I think that everyone knows about the 1909 SVDB cent and people get excited about it. I think that there will always be a market for that coin because it's a coin with an awesome story. You don't need a magnifying glass to understand it. It's a first year of issue. And if we see the Lincoln cent go kaput, like we're thinking that it might, that's going to draw attention to the series. And who doesn't love the idea of a 1909 OS VDB that pops in change every time there's a coin show? And hopefully there'll be good coin drops. That's one of my favorite things that a coin show can do to get energy. It's a coin drop where you drop some coins that are key dates into circulation so that the public can look for them. Oh, Dennis Tucker says, a colleague has recently been barraged by non-numismatists who insist their common coins are rare. There are lots of coin apps right now, and when I talk about junk information, there's a lot of junk information out there. If I did a coin snap, and I'm not using any specific name, this is a generic name that I'm making up, a app where I take a picture of my phone and then AI gives me a value and I put in a 1965 Washington quarter. A coin that if you go to a bank and order 100 coins, you'll probably find one. There's a few special mint set ones that are expensive, but it is a coin that is worth a quarter every single day. It might say that that coin is worth $3,000, but it gives a coin dealer a chance for someone to come into the shop and maybe they'll buy something else. Maybe they'll also have some 90% silver that they're selling. So, the amount of crap information out there is annoying, but it's also making people think about coins. Do you think cents will become rare if they're completely stopped? No. Thanks, Robert. I am fired up about coins. I never thought that I'd be able to make this part of a career, and I'm grateful to the hobby, and I'm grateful to the ANA, and I'm grateful to National Coin Week. So a lot of gratitude going into this weekend. Someone asks about branch mint gold. So we're thinking of coins from Charlotte, um, Dalenega. We're thinking about $5 half eagles. This is where I go to a specialist. I'd ask Doug Winter what he thinks.
We tend to get a lot of those questions when somebody puts something out that our Stephen Roach tends to get and has to answer. So
Yes, shout out to ANA's education guy, Stephen Roach. There are two Steve Roaches. I'm Steve Roach. He's Stephen Roach. Gregory asks, can AI replace coin grading in the future? I don't see that happening. What I do see it working with is potentially doing things like sorting out mint state 69 versus mint state 70 silver eagles. Coins where if it has one nick, then it moves from 60 or 70 to 69. That's where it has potential to be in use. Do you think that die varieties like BAMs and some of these can be seen with a magnifying glass will become more or less popular? I don't know. I think that the broad interest of very minor varieties has shifted. And a lot of very minor varieties, I think, are less saleable than they used to be. Just because more of them are coming around because people are finding them. The supply is increasing. But like they say in investment conferences, past performance is no indication of future.
Mhm.
So if I would predict the future and if I knew what was going to happen, I probably would be on an island somewhere, really, and just chilling out. With that, Paula, thank you.
Thank you, Steve. I'm going to do a wrap up, and then if there's some more questions pop in, you can answer them once I'm done, if that's okay.
Cool.
All right. So thank you so much for joining us, and thank you to Steve for a great presentation. Our numismat talks are being recorded and will be available once they are edited at money.org/education. That usually takes about a month, and it might take a bit longer since we had one every day this week. I hope you have enjoyed this week's numismat talks for National Coin Week. If you're local, please stop by to see us at the Money Museum for a great day of numismatics tomorrow, while the whole education and museum staff will be there. And we're looking forward to seeing a bunch of people that we maybe don't normally see. So let's see. Stephen, you got another, or Steve, sorry, I'm used to Stephen. A couple of questions if you want, or one question.
Yeah. What do I think about the market and future of metals? I love metals. It's what I enjoy kind of collecting. I don't necessarily think that all metals are going to go to the stratosphere, but it's a wonderful area to collect. And um, if they can get some of the gamification in metals in the way that they have registry sets and can kind of figure out ways to standardize the collecting experience of metals, I think that could be a really good thing for the hobby. Clark asks, will slabs continue to impact the field of professional numismatics even though they are not always accurate? Absolutely, slabs are going nowhere because they take away the authenticity issue. Um, Taking out fake coins and fake slabs aside, that you can have a slab that has a guarantee that a coin is authentic is invaluable for people feeling secure in the coin market. Robert says, one trend I've noticed, I've seen demand and margins increase on US mint coins dated from the 1700s, regardless on condition. People love an 1800s or an 18th century coin. So I've always heard from dealers, if you have everything otherwise the same and one coin is 1799 and one coin is 1800, the 1799 one will sell 9 out of 10 times first.
Interesting. Well, I just want to say thanks again, Steve, and I will
Thanks, Paula.
I'll see you in Oklahoma City in August. It'll be nice and hot.
Yes, thanks for the invite. Thanks everyone for attending. Happy National Coin Week and till later.
Yep, thank you.